Business school admissions don't work the way most people think. The students with the highest GMAT scores or the strongest CVs aren't always the ones that get in. The ones who get in are the ones who understand the real rules of admission, what schools are trying to encourage, what trends exist in their recruiting policies, and how rankings and class composition influence every decision that they make. Because at the end of the day, schools are not just evaluating individuals. They're building a class that helps them perform well in the rankings. They're trying to balance nationalities, gender ratios, professional backgrounds, and academic strengths. So yes, it's about timing, positioning, and storytelling, but it's also about understanding the direction each school is moving forwards. My name is Peter, and I'm the lead academic advisor here at MinPrep Education. Over the past few years, our team has helped more than 400 students get accepted into the world's best business schools. 84% of them received one of their top 2 choices, including more than 50 admits to LBS, 40 to HEC, and over 70 admits to Ivy League universities in the US. We've worked with candidates from every background: engineers, consultants, economists, even artists. And one thing is always true: success doesn't come from luck or perfect stats. It comes from understanding how schools really make decisions. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how that works step by step. First, we'll see why admissions is not just about scores, how schools use quotas, diversity metrics, and rankings to shape their classes. Secondly, we'll go through the application process itself, from your CV to your essays and interviews, and how top candidates prepare each part differently. Third, we'll look at timing, when to apply, how rounds actually work, and why the month you submit your file can actually double your chances. And finally, I'll show you how our team at MinPrep applies these strategies, the exact system we use with our students, and the results it's produced around the world. Let's get started. Let's start with the biggest misconception in business school admissions. Most applicants still believe if they hit a high GMAT focus score and have a strong CV, everything else will just fall into place. But schools don't only admit the best numbers, they build classes. Every year, programs like LBS, ESCP, HEC adjust their selection criteria to balance their ranking goals and their class composition. Because in reality, business schools are businesses, and in that business, rankings are the currency. Rankings determine funding, partnerships, and recruiting pipelines. So schools constantly fine-tune the mix of students they admit by gender, nationality, and background to strengthen those metrics. Here's what that looks like in practice. Example 1, gender balance. Take the Masters in Finance at LBS. The school openly targets around 35% of women in every cohort. That means they may admit a woman with a GMAT focus score around 575 or 585, even though the class average is closer to 635, because she helps the school reach that gender target, which in turn improves its ranking in international surveys. Let's look at international diversity. Schools also want representation from as many regions as possible. If you come from a country that's underrepresented, say Eastern Europe, Latin America, or parts of Africa, that uniqueness can become a real advantage. We've seen 2 nearly identical candidates apply to HEC Paris. The one from a less represented region received the offer, not because of a higher GMAT focus score, but because of the diversity value they added to the class profile. At LBS, the Masters in Management average sits around 635 for the GMAT focus, but many European admits get in with a 615 or 625. In fact, there are often more students admitted with a 605 than with a 685. After a certain threshold, high numbers don't improve a school's ranking, but adding diversity, gender balance, or non-traditional backgrounds does. So if you're obsessing over chasing the perfect GMAT focus score, you're probably missing the bigger picture. Admissions isn't about perfection, it's about strategy. It's about understanding what each school is trying to achieve this year and positioning yourself in a way that helps them build the class that they want. That's the first real insight behind every successful admission. Now that we've covered how schools think, let's look at the actual application process and how it works step by step. Every successful admission depends on 4 components: CV, recommendations, essays, and the interview. Step 1, the CV. Your CV is the first document an admission officer opens, and you have around 6 seconds to make it look credible. At MinPrep, we rebuild CVs from scratch using the same layout and logic that schools expect internally. We benchmark each one with VMock, an AI tool that replicates how corporate recruiters scan resumes, and we only validate CVs that score above 90 out of 100 or higher. The format, order, and phrasing are optimized for clarity. Every line highlights quantifiable results not responsibilities. In short, the CV isn't a list of tasks, it's a data sheet showing measurable impact. Step 2, recommendations. Recommendations are the only part of the application written by someone else. Yet they often sound identical. Hardworking, reliable, excellent student. We design structured drafts for recommenders based on the exact format used by each school. For example, the competency grids at LBS or INSEAD, or the short answer format at HEC. Then we align the tone of the recommendation with the rest of the file. If an essay emphasizes leadership, the recommender highlights teamwork. If a transcript shows weak quantitative grades, the recommendation reinforces analytical ability. The goal is to make both voices, yours and theirs, complement each other. Step 3, the personal statement or motivation letter. This section represents roughly 1/3 of the entire decision. At MinPrep, we separate it into 2 parts, the hook and the body. The hook is written with one of our editorial team, graduates from Oxford, Cambridge, and LSE, because the first 5 lines decide whether the essay is read carefully or skimmed. The body is refined with mentors who studied in the target program. They help the student integrate the school's real values, leadership, analytical thinking, or social impact, instead of generic statements like, "I've been always passionate about business." Each essay goes through multiple reviews until it sounds factual, structured, and aligned with the program's positioning. Step 4, the interview. The interview determines how convincingly a student can translate their written profile into a human story. We conduct unlimited mock interviews. Most students complete 7 or 8 sessions before their final attempt. Several of our mentors have served on admissions panels at LBS, ESEC, LSE, and INSEAD, which gives us direct insight into how candidates are actually assessed. We don't just know the format. We've seen the exact scorecards that schools send to their alumni interviewers. These documents outline the precise competencies that interviewers must evaluate, things like analytical thinking, leadership potential, international awareness, and clarity of motivation. Because we have access to those materials, we know in advance which questions are likely to appear and how each answer is graded on the evaluation grid. That insider knowledge allows us to prepare students with precision. They don't just rehearse, they train using the same framework that admissions committees use to make their final decisions. For example, last year, 16 of our students applied to LBS. 15 were admitted, including one with a GMAT focus score of 565. Her interview score was exceptional. She had learned how to align her story with what the school valued in her profile and frame her interview specifically. When every element of the application works together, the CV, the recommendations, the essays, and the interviews, the result is a coherent file that feels deliberate and complete. That's the difference between a technically good application and one that actually gets the offer. Part 3, timing strategy. Now, let's talk about timing. Probably one of the most underrated factors in the entire admissions process. Most applicants think that applying early automatically means higher chances, but that's not always true. The reality is that timing strategy depends entirely on the school's admissions model. There are 2 types of schools, round-based schools and rolling schools. Round-based schools like LBS, HEC, ESEC, Bocconi, and ESCP open applications in several waves. Round 1, round 2, and round 3. Most people assume round 1 is the easiest. It's not. Round 1 tends to be the most competitive round, and here's why. You're competing against 3 specific groups. Number 1, reapplicants. People who applied in the year before, already improved their file, and come back stronger. 2, scholarship seekers, since 70% of scholarships are allocated in the first round. And thirdly, international applicants, who apply early because they need time for visa and housing. So round 1 is filled with strong, well-prepared candidates. Round 2, on the other hand, often has slightly lower volume, but very strong diversity. Schools use it to balance the class, adding missing profiles or nationalities. Round 3 is usually for exceptional cases or niche profiles, but the number of seats is much smaller. Rolling schools such as LSE, Imperial, IE, or St. Gallen work differently. They read files continuously. So here, the earlier you apply, the better, simply because the school has more seats available. But even within rolling systems, there are hidden peaks of competition. At LSE, for example, we noticed that in December, their team processes around 150 applications per day. In late January, that number drops to around 50 per day. The difference? Identical profiles have higher conversion rates in quieter months because each file receives more attention. That's the kind of data we track. We monitor admission cycles year after year, when volumes peak, when committees meet, and when decisions are released. So when our students ask, when should I apply? We don't answer with guesswork. We answer with statistics. Timing isn't about being early. It's about applying in the right moment, when your profile is ready and when the competition dynamics work in your favor. That's how we optimize not only acceptance rates, but also scholarships and interview invitations. Part 4, our system and results. Everything I've explained so far, from how schools build their classes, to how they read each part of your application, to how timing changes your chances, is what we've built into our system at MinPrep. Every student we work with is managed like a real project. From day one, you're assigned a student manager from your target school. Someone who's been through the same process and knows exactly what admissions committees expect. Around that manager, we build a dedicated team. A CV editor, a recommendation strategist, an essay editor, a GMAT tutor, and an interview coach. Each person focuses on one component only, because admission success comes from specialization, not multitasking. You also have WhatsApp access 24/7 to your manager. There are no email delays, no waiting 3 days for feedback, and when you have a question, you get an answer fast. All our support is unlimited. Unlimited revisions, unlimited mock interviews, unlimited strategy calls. That's why our results are consistent. Over 400 admits in the last few years. 84% of students receiving one of their top 2 choices, over 50 to LBS, over 40 to HEC Paris, and more than 70 into the Ivy League in the US. But beyond the numbers, the real success is structure. We've built a system that replaces guesswork with process, and that's exactly what top schools reward. Getting into a top business school is not about luck. It's not just about your GMAT, your grades, or your resume. It's about understanding how schools make decisions and using that knowledge to position your story in the right way. The best candidates don't guess. They follow a system, a clear, structured plan that aligns with how admissions teams think. That's exactly what we do every day at MinPrep. Each year, we only work with a limited amount of students, 120 in total, to make sure every one of them receives individual attention from our advisors. If you're ambitious and planning to apply in 2026, you can book a free strategy call directly with me or with one of our lead academic advisors. During that call, we'll review your profile together, discuss which schools are realistic for you, and show you how to maximize your chances in the upcoming application rounds. The link is right below this video. Spots are limited, and we only take new students when we're sure we can deliver real results. Whether you're aiming for LBS, HEC, or LSE, or the Ivy League, you'll leave the call with clarity and a concrete plan. Because in admissions, just like in business, success isn't about trying harder. It's about playing smarter. Thank you for watching.